Hey, gorgeous! Welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast with Holly Wharton, which combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business. This podcast features solo shows with Holly and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now, here's your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 164. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another co-hosted episode with Joe Casey. This week, I'm super excited to share with you something that I think is going to be a really, really useful episode. We'll be talking about business coaching, mentoring, and masterminding. We're going to talk about what you need and when. We're going to talk about the difference between each one, coaching, mentoring, and masterminding, why you might need each one, and when you might need more than one. Do you need a coach and a mentor and a mastermind? Or 2 out of the 3, or just one? The elements that make or break a mastermind. Joe shares some super practical tips on how to create a very successful mastermind. She's been in one for the last couple of years, and it's really helped her transform her business. So, hope you find this episode useful. It's full of really, really great information. And that's all for today. Let's get on to the episode.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Joe and Holly podcast, which I think may have to be the new name. This is Joe Casey from the Work Happy Coaching podcast, and I'm with Holly Wharton for the Business Mindset podcast.
Hello.
Hi, Holly.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about coaching, mentoring, and masterminding. What's the difference? And how do you know what you need and when? This is something that we've been planning on talking about for a while, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. This was one of our original kind of topics that we came up when we first started doing this joint podcast.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that obviously both Holly and I are coaches. I suppose call myself a coach mentor a lot more now because I think that there is a difference. But I also think that the terminology and the different methodologies, I guess, for want of a better word, are really interesting and also distinctly different. And I think there's a lot of confusion about that in the industry, and it's a lot of confusion out there for people thinking, well, what do I need? How do I know what I need and when? So that was one of the drivers for talking about this. But Holly, you've got your own experience about this not too long ago, haven't you? No?
Oh, what? Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm sorry. I should have said that. Okay, so we'll cut all this. We'll start again. I was thinking of the time when you hired somebody thinking that they were a coach because they called themselves a coach.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to tell that story.
Okay, sorry. I should have primed you before that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I must have been, it was a few years ago actually. It was maybe 4 years ago. There's this, online business person who offered online programs and coaching and that kind of thing. And I really loved her work, wanted to work with her, researched how I could work with her, was super excited to start working one-to-one with her, signed up for her biggest package. Of course, stepped full straight into it and expecting coaching because, as we've said, I've trained as a coach, so I know what coaching is supposed to be, or at least as I was taught it. And then started with the sessions. It was I don't remember how many sessions it was, maybe 5. And it wasn't really coaching. It was more like picking her brain, I guess. But I didn't really get that until the last session. In the last session, I just asked a ton of questions and got lots of really useful, juicy, valuable information. And that was great. And I was able to really make use out of that last session. But that was more like a mentoring situation. And what I really needed and wanted was coaching because I was really needing to get, kind of a kick up the butt to, get action going and, do my stuff. And there wasn't any accountability. There wasn't any kind of helping me explore stuff. It was really just kind of more of a mentoring thing, but very much led by me rather than by that, the coach. So, wow, that really threw me off. And it actually took me a long time, probably several months to figure out what the heck went wrong there. Like what it was that I was expecting as opposed to what it was that I received. And now I have a really kind of clear idea of what it was that happened. But at the time I was just like, what's going on? This is not very useful. but it could have been if I just realized what the heck it was. But because my brain was so stuck on the fact that it was called coaching and I wanted coaching and needed coaching, I didn't take advantage of the fact that I could have gotten really good mentoring from this person. So I think my brain sometimes gets stuck on formal definitions and doesn't see the reality of what's going on. But yeah, that was kind of annoying because I really could have gotten more use out of the work with that person if I had just kind of figured it out myself.
Or I guess that she'd have laid out, this is how we're going to work, and this is, what you can expect from me, this is what I expect from you, here's how to get the best out of the sessions, that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I don't remember this time because, again, that was a few years ago, but I don't remember any of that really happening. It was just kind of like, hey, here we are for our first session. Let's talk. Yeah, so I don't remember there being much framework around that. And perhaps if there had been, then I would have realized, oh, okay, this is more like mentoring than coaching. And I could have totally taken advantage of that, but it wasn't like I didn't go into each call expecting that. So it was like I didn't know how to take advantage of that time.
Okay. That does sound really frustrating, and I'm wondering if this might be a good juncture then for us to say this is kind of our definition of what we mean by coaching, because I do think that one of the issues is that as an industry, and the industry is very broad and it's a broad church, and coaching in itself, there are people who've come from, say, the kind of sports science, sports coaching model background. There are people who have come from a non-directive, coactive background. There are people who have done training and coaching. There are people who haven't done any training and coaching. So I think there are some different definitions and some kind of loosey-goosey definitions out there. So it might be helpful if we kind of say, well, this is our background and this is our understanding of coaching, and this is what we mean when we use that term.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
It's so funny because every time I think about the definition of coaching, I forget where it was that I learned this, but it sticks in my mind. It was like, coaching is helping people to achieve their goals more quickly and efficiently than they would have if they had tried to do it on their own or something like that. I know that was like one of those free coaching academy things that I went to, or something that was like in the very beginning before I even trained. I learned that as kind of the definition. And I don't think that really covers fully what it is, but it's kind of the basis of what it is, because you're working with people's goals, you're helping them achieve their goals, you're asking lots of questions as a coach to help them explore, and it's more about kind of, I think, digging into their mind and helping them get clarity on stuff than it is telling them what to do. But then there's so many crossovers. Like, I think very rarely do we have 100% pure coaching, 100% pure mentoring. I think there's a lot of crossover in most cases. What do you think?
I agree. And kind of my background, so one of the things that I did for a number of years was I ran level 5 ILM coaching qualifications and the level 7, but not as often. And so one of the things that we do, so I'm in the UK, so ILM stands for Institute of Leadership and Management for the people who are outside of the UK. And it's kind of become the de facto coaching qualification for people within a workplace. It tends to be, so people who are managers within an organization, they want a coaching qualification. That tends to be the one that most organizations go for. It's probably the largest one out there. There then are also other coaching organizations. We do have ICF accredited ones. We also have the Association for Coaching over here in the UK, but they all tend to take a very non-directive stance on coaching, by which I mean coaching comes from a place of the firm belief that the client has all the answers that they need, and it's the coach's job to help them to come up with those. So the client sets the direction, the client sets the goal with the help with the coach, and the coach's job is to ask questions, provide kind of different perspectives, reframes, tools to help the client explore their reality, what might be getting in the way of where they're wanting to go, and help them get there much more quickly than they would have done on their own. And I'm just going to, because I'm a bit of a nerd, I'm going to read out the ICF, the International Coaching Federation's definition of coaching. So ICF defines coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential, which is particularly important in today's uncertain and complex environment. A lot of the definitions do get very wordy, and I know that when I was running the courses, one of the exercises that we do is we pull together a number of definitions of coaching and ask people to, to assess them. And one of the things that I always notice is there is no one definition that everybody absolutely agrees on. So I think for me, there are elements that are consistent throughout. And I would say it's that belief that the client has the answers that they need. Mm-hmm. And it's our job to help facilitate and help those to come out. It's about helping them to explore what they want without the coach putting on their agenda of what they should want or what what the other people think they should want, but to explore what the client wants and to help them kind of get out of their own way so that they can get there as quickly as possible. And yes, that means work around overcoming any blocks that they have, overcoming any kind of belief stuff that they've got in there that is holding them back. Some of it may be helping them to come up with different approaches to situations, but it's very much in this kind of partnering, and it's not a telling profession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I very, very much partnering. And I think that's one of the main things that makes coaching differ from mentoring, because in mentoring, usually there's someone who's kind of the more experienced person who's giving advice or assisting or helping or supporting the less experienced person.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say so. Certainly for mentoring, it's generally somebody who's been there and done that. And there's a great story, and I might even have to look it up and provide the link in the show notes. But there's a great story about how the term mentor came about. And I think it comes from either ancient Greek or ancient Roman history. And there was a king who said to his kind of most trusted advisor, who I believe was called mentor or some variation of that. That's where the root of the word comes from. And he said, take my son and teach him everything you know.
Ooh.
And so that's always a really good reminder of me of the definition of mentoring. It's much more of a kind of a teaching role. There's more kind of knowledge in there, kind of passing on knowledge and passing on wisdom of experience. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the reasons that I kind of call myself a coach mentor, in that I do a lot of coaching with coaches, but I also am able to share information and strategy and kind of the wisdom of my experience, for what it's worth, to help them on their way, because obviously I built a coaching practice, and I'm still kind of, growing my coaching practice. And so that's one of the things that I help people with. That being said, I think that most coaches that I have worked with will still use bits of mentoring and will still use bits of passing on information, because sometimes if somebody genuinely doesn't have the information, you can spend an hour going, so how could you get that information? Who else could you ask? And lots of open questions.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just might be really quick to just go, I'm just going to recommend something for you now. So you almost kind of step out of that kind of coaching mode and say, why don't you look up this? Or, or here's what you could do. So I don't think it's a purist medium. I know I'm getting proper nerdy. I'm hearing the words coming out of my mouth and just going, you sound so academic.
I love it, because when I first trained as a coach and I first had my first kind of practice clients and first coaching clients, I used to be terrified of overstepping the boundaries of pure coaching, because my brain is very literal. So what I used to do was I would never bring up those kind of advice tips things during the session. What I used to do was, in the session notes that I would send to the client by email, I would say, and by the way, you might want to check out this link.
I love that.
So I would keep it outside of the coaching call, but I would still give them that advice. That was my way of overstepping the rigid boundaries that I'd set up for myself.
I love that. That's so sweet.
I was afraid the coaching police were going to come.
Yes. The
tapping into my Skype call and be like, you have overstepped the boundaries of pure coaching.
It's a really important discussion to have if you're within the coaching field or thinking about going into the coaching field, because for most of us, particularly if you've kind of run a business, or you've had staff, or you've worked with colleagues, or, if you're in a family, most of our communication when we're trying to help somebody to grow comes from a place of teaching and giving advice. And that can be really effective. But what it does do is that kind of circumnavigates or cuts short that kind of process of the client, the person that you're talking to, learning and discovering for themselves. And if you think about those lessons that you've had in life, which are probably the deepest, the most long lasting, they're usually learnt through experience, not through somebody giving you advice or reading a book or getting some more information. Usually it's come from discovering your own answers, reflecting on things, thinking, oh, I'm never going to do that again. Oh, I wonder if I try this, and having those kind of revelatory moments. And I think one of the important roles that coaches have is helping people to speed up that process that I think happens naturally for us, but can sometimes take years.
Yes.
You know, so I don't know about you, Holly, but there have been certain situations in my life that I seem to repeat many, many times before the penny dropped. I'm thinking, relationships that I had with boys, and then, later on as I got older, men, it was just like, this is the same guy. He just looks different, and I'm doing the same thing with them, until I finally kind of woke up and just I need to find a new way of having relationships with men. And, now I'm happily married and have been for almost 10 years. But what coaching can do is it can really speed that up. So we help people to reflect. We help people to kind of go, so what have the times been where it has worked? We help people to see past their fears and all of that stuff. So it is a really important process. But that being said, there isn't any coaching police. And I think there are areas of overlap where sometimes you will dip into, say, advice giving. Sometimes you will dip into mentoring. Sometimes you will dip into maybe a bit of consultancy, or, it's brainstorm together. And for me, even as somebody who kind of has trained coaches in the past, I think that's fine. So long as the balance is on the coaching and the helping people discover, for me, is the test. On balance, are you spending more time telling than listening and asking questions and helping someone discover? In which case, I wouldn't say you're using coaching. You're using more of a mentoring or a teaching or a consulting style.
Yeah, and I think it also has to do with being aware of kind of putting aside our need to shine and looking at what the client needs, because maybe the client needs more mentoring, or maybe the client needs more coaching, but really becoming aware of what it is that they need, clarifying that with them, and then making sure we're on track with how we're working with them. Because I do think, and I remember this from the very beginning when I first trained as a coach, lots of people struggling not to give advice.
Yes.
So I think there is that kind of tendency that we have at the very beginning when we very first start coaching, is to want to be like, well, you should do it this way. Yeah. This is worked for me. I've seen people do this, that kind of thing. And so that's something that I really think needs to be kind of nipped in the bud.
Absolutely.
So that you can, kind of really focus on what the client needs rather than blurting out whatever it is that you think they need.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talked a lot about coaching and mentoring, which are both kind of one-to-one things. Let's talk a little bit about the mastermind.
Yes.
How does that differ from coaching or mentoring?
To be absolutely honest with you, I don't know of a one universal definition of mastermind. I know that there are a few of them. So I can share my approach to it, and it may be that you have a slightly different one, and then I'm sure there's somebody who's written the book on it, and listeners can send us comments and just go, you're totally wrong, this is what mentoring is. But so my definition of masterminding is having a group of people who it's kind of tightly contracted, by which I mean there is an agreement of codes of practice and codes of behavior and the purpose of the group, who are there to mutually support one another on a journey of some sort. So for me, I work with coaches primarily, and the way that I find that this works really, really well is if you have people who are on a similar path. That doesn't mean that they necessarily have to be all coaches, but maybe who are all entrepreneurs and all at a similar stage in their business, but with some variation. So it's good if you've got people who are maybe a little bit ahead of you, and also people who are a little bit not quite at your stage, so that there's a sharing of some of that kind of that wisdom, and so there is a mentoring element. But I think within masterminding as well, there is a huge support element. There's a community element that comes from this sense that you are not alone, and you can get groupthink on things sometimes. So I just need some other perspectives on this issue I've got. You can also use that. It can be hugely beneficial because you can get different perspectives on a problem or a challenge or different ideas. And it's also the people who can share the journey with you. You've got people who can celebrate with you. which is really important. You've got people who can commiserate with you, which is really important. You've got people who can pull you out of the doldrums and talk you down off the ledge. And I know we've talked about this before because that happens on a regular basis. But it's people who get where you're coming from. Because I think when I see masterminds working really well, it's where people who have all committed to spend the time and the energy in supporting one another for mutual growth. I don't know if that's too kind of high level, but that's kind of my definition of it.
No, I like that. I think that definitely makes sense.
Good.
Yeah. And I have a confession to make. I have never been in a mastermind.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I've joined kind of mentoring programs that had like a mastermind Facebook group for support. I've had joined online programs that have, the group support, but I've never had like a small mastermind group that I've joined. A couple of years ago, I had a bunch of different people approach me and nothing quite felt right. And I just never took action to form my own group, and it just never happened. And I've always kind of debated, I don't know, this is actually, I think, possibly useful conversation for us to have publicly so that people can decide what's right for them when. But I'm also really kind of concerned about being in a group and getting off track. Because, I work with my business mentor or coach, I have my plan with her, but then I kind of think I also have some fears around being in a group as well, and then kind of getting off track by what their advice or comments or suggestions might be. I tend to find it easiest to stay on track when I kind of ignore just about everyone else and just put my head down and focus on my own stuff. So what do you think about that? Have you ever had that kind of experience in a mastermind group?
Yeah, so my approach, and kind of full disclosure, me and my mastermind buddies are kind of midway through writing a kind of a book or a playbook or some kind of guide to masterminding, because I have to say, ours is pretty awesome. I'm just going to say that. But I have had experiences before when I've been in masterminds that just didn't quite work or didn't quite gel. I think there are some kind of elements that make it or break it. And the first one is having really clear definitions on boundaries, about expectations, and on commitment. So things like, how often we're going to meet, and there needs to be a commitment that you're going to show up. And there needs to be that commitment because, say if you've got 4 people in a mastermind group, because I think personally, in my experience anyway, if you've got more than 4, it becomes a little bit unwieldy. You end up having really long meetings, which can work. So I know some people who are in mastermind groups and they meet like once a quarter, but they meet for like the full day. And that's, I don't have any personal experience of that, but I know that can work really well. So, but for me, what we do is
do you meet weekly, sorry?
We meet weekly now, yes.
See, that's a huge commitment as well.
It is, but the benefits of it are enormous. So this is kind of the evolution of this group that I'm in now. And like I say, I have been in other groups. I've been in groups that met kind of once a month. I've been in groups that were bigger. And to be honest, they didn't work as well for me. I think the elements that do work, even if you are meeting less regularly, are you need to have a really clear agenda and really clear boundaries. By which I mean, you need to know what's the purpose of meeting, and you all need to be conscious of sticking to that. So I'm a bit like you. I am super busy and I'm super focused. And whilst I love having a chat like the best of people, I'm not going to take 2 hours out of my week to have a chat. I'm an introvert. I don't need that, So having a focus of what we're going to be talking about. What do we do if somebody isn't showing up? What do we do if somebody is getting off track? How do we bring it back on? What do we all want to get out of it? How are we going to manage conflict? How are we going to hold each other accountable? Actually, all of those skills that you develop as a coach, you need to apply to your mastermind group. So our group, we meet once a week for 2 hours, and there's 3 of us in the group now. So we meet for 90 minutes, sorry. So what we do is we are all absolutely committed to meeting once a week. And I have to say that the lengths that we have each gone to sometimes to show up for that meeting is amazing. I mean, one of our members, her dad's really sick, and she's doing meetings from hospital rooms.
Wow.
Yeah, we've all done it whilst traveling. I have kids, and so sometimes there have been mastermind meetings done with my daughter kind of with her colouring book next to me and occasionally joining in, but we're all committed to doing that. We also have really clear guidelines of, well, how do we manage conflict? Because occasionally that happens, you get, I didn't like the way you said that. And you can kind of go into it with, I don't like the way you said that, or you can go into it, okay, when you said that, I felt this.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and some of this has to be kind of bashed out at the beginning. And then what do you do if people don't show up? How do you have those kind of trickier conversations? And so for us, what we do is we have a hot seat so that everybody has... So we start off the call with some general chit-chat. How's your week gone? What's going on for you right now? And we have a rough model of, we have a share and an ask. So we each take in turns, and we're relatively strict on the timings as well. So, if we meet for 90 minutes, then we have some chit-chat at the beginning. It's not too much chit-chat. It's like, oh, how's your week? How have you been? All of that stuff. Because we genuinely, love each other to bits because we have been there through thick and thin. But then we are quite strict on, okay, now it's your turn. We have 20 to 25 minutes. What's your share? What's your ask? And then it's down to that person about what kind of help they need. So what I need from you right now is give me some ideas, or what I need from you right now is tell me I wasn't a complete idiot and this wasn't the biggest disaster and I should just give this up. So there's a lot in there about you owning your own stuff. That being said, it's just great fun. And there is something about having people there to kind of go, that was amazing, I'm so proud of you. And also there to just go, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. And so I know that speaking for all three of us, we do regularly say best mastermind ever. Because I know other people might be in other mastermind groups who think they're amazing. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but... Oh, I know there are other people who have great masterminds as well, but that model works really well for us.
Okay, so let me ask you a question first, because I think these are some questions that people might have if they're listening in. How did you find these people, and how long have you been together?
Okay, so it was an interesting journey. So we started off in a paid mastermind group that another coach had set up. So Kate Swoboda, who runs a Courageous coaching program, she has, I think it's called Coaching Circle, and it meets once a year. And there's normally between 8 and 10 coaches in there. You sign up for it and it's paid. And at the end of that, I think that was like 6 weeks. At the end of that, a few of us said, we would like to carry this on. So I think 6 of us said we would like to carry this on. And so we met for a few times, and I think we were meeting once every 2 weeks. And 6 people it was difficult for people to get stuff said and get stuff done. And then there was 1 or 2 who kind of couldn't meet each time, which was okay because we had a larger group. But there also then became a bit kind of, what's the level of commitment? So there was definitely some teething problems that went on. And then it kind of ran its course. And I think just generally pretty much everybody said, this isn't working, is it? And so we kind of disbanded after a couple of months. But in between times, what a number of us had done is we'd started kind of one-on-one conversations with one another. And then so 4 of us said in those one-on-one conversations, it'd be really nice if should we see if we could get something together just with kind of, with us. And so we did that, and that ran for about a year. Again, meeting once a week with the 4 of us. And then one of the members said, you know what, this isn't working for me now. I'm in another mastermind, which is a face-to-face one, and I just can't afford the time, and I feel like I'm getting more out of that one than this one. And so we parted ways, and it carried on with the 3 of us. So we've been going for about 2 years now.
Oh. And of course, it's all online on Skype.
Yeah, it's all on Skype. So one of them's in Canada, one of them's in the US, and I'm in the UK.
Wow.
Which blows my mind.
How do you make that
time.
Work with time zones? Because the US person is in California, isn't she?
No. She's on the East Coast.
Oh, okay. So
it's not too. So she's in the same time zone as our Canadian coach.
Okay.
So that's not too bad. But there is a 5-hour time difference for me. So we have a regular time that we generally meet, which is kind of late afternoon for me, late morning for them. For a while we did it, which was a Friday evening for me in the days when, I had a day job and stuff. And yeah, we just have to commit to making it work. And there are obviously times when we have to be more flexible. So like for next week, for example, at our usual time of meeting, I'm going to be traveling up to Scotland. So we are going to meet at a different time for next week. So then we have to do a bit of, calendar ninja tactics about when can we all fit in, and that kind of goes backwards and forwards. But we generally make it work. Occasionally we'll have a week off, but not very often.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's obviously me not having any experience. Didn't have much to say, but it was so fascinating to see how you've created such clear guidelines. And I think you should turn that into a book.
We have started it, and actually it's me who's holding it up, so I'm feeling a bit of the shame thing now.
We did an episode about
we
that,
did an episode on it. I know we did. I need to get onto it. But yeah, having those guidelines right at the beginning works really well. And we did a little kind of pilot with another group of coaches who were had heard about our mastermind and were, how does it work so well for you? And so we had almost like a big group coaching session with them. The three of us met with the three of them and said,
we could do a webinar.
We could do a webinar. Yeah, we had all kinds of plans, and again, it's me who's holding it up. So yes, I know we should do. But genuinely, if this is something that people are interested in, they could give me the motivation, the push to get it done, because it has been so great for all of our businesses. There is just something about having other people's ideas and input. And, when you get stuck in your own head and these mental walls we can build up for ourselves, where you kind of go, this is the only possible way it can be done. And you have two other people who are just going, I don't think that's true. You could do that. And you kind of go, oh my God, I'd never thought of that before. And I think especially for us introverts, we can get stuck in our heads a lot. And I have to say, I don't know how much this has to do with it, but the three of us who are in the group now, we're all introverts. And so I guess it's kind of easier for us to kind of get down to business because, we're not so hot on small talk. So, but I also have to say that they are genuinely two of my best friends in the world now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm conscious of time, but I feel like there's a couple of things that we need to discuss here for people as part of the conversation. So how do you know what you need when? How do you know when you need coaching, mentoring, or masterminding? And might you ever need 2 or 3 of them at the same time?
Yeah, for sure. Have them all. Have them all.
You need one of each flavor.
Yeah. Well, I would say everybody definitely, if you're running any kind of business, then look into having a mastermind for sure. Okay. I mean, it doesn't have to cost you anything other than your time. Other than the amazing book that I'm actually now committed to writing about it. But yeah, I mean, so that can be fantastic in terms of keeping you motivated and helping you stay the course. In terms of coaching, I would also say, why wouldn't I say have a coach? Because the biggest, not battle's the wrong word, but the biggest challenge, I think, setting up and running your own business, whether you're doing online or bricks and mortar, is the stuff in your own head and the stuff that's holding you back. Not being able to see where your blind spots are, being stuck in your fears and not being able to see a way out. And there's no better way other than coaching that I know of to help you get past those things. So if you're struggling with, I know I should be doing this, but why aren't I? Or why am I procrastinating? All of that stuff. I would say, get a coach. And whether that is a coach, a true kind of purist, ICF, coactive, let me look at all of my stuff type coach, or if it's, a coach like you, Holly, who is going to use a particular type of methodology to help somebody over those blocks. And also in defining what it is that you want. I think one of the great things about coaching is it can really help you to see the possibilities for yourself that you were maybe hoping were there deep down, but maybe didn't quite believe were there. So it's that kind of seeing the possibilities.
Yeah, I love that. Coaching is so fantastic for clarity. Like when you're just totally lost in your head and you're like, what the heck do I want?
Absolutely. And mentoring, I think... I'm going to say mentoring / consulting, because consulting is something that we've not really mentioned, but consulting, again, that outside eye who's going to give you more of an advice kind of role. I think that can be useful, particularly now, because I don't know about you, Holly, but most of the people I work with, it's not lack of information they're struggling with.
Yes,
it's lack of
all the time.
Yes. In fact, it's information overload. Yeah. And I think what a good consultant or mentor can do, and if they're also a coach, like Holly and I are, then we can kind of marry the two things. But what they're able to do is kind of say, okay, you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about that. This is what you need to focus on right now. Do these steps, then that step, then that one, then, okay, let's look at this knotty problem and let's solve it together. And I think that's where the kind of the gap is for people. It's just like clarity and focus rather than information. Yeah. Listeners, listen to this now. You know, in your heart of hearts, you do not need to log on to one more webinar or sign up for one more ebook. You know that. And yet we all do it. I do it too.
Yeah.
Actually, usually what people need is clarity of what steps to take, and then the ability or the help to get out of their own way in order to do it, and then some accountability and someone to celebrate with them. And if you've got a coach who can do all of that for you, then fantastic. Yeah. Then you don't need all three. But I think if you've got a coach who is going to help you with a particular kind of mindset approach, and then maybe you have a mentor or somebody who's going to give you some consultancy help on the kind of, this is what you really need to be focusing on now. And then having a mastermind for that kind of support and that, kind of helping to keep you accountable and keep you on track. Whichever combination you do it in, they're the three elements that you need.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, the coach that I'm seeing now is very much kind of a coach mentor. So I get kind of both aspects of that. And it's really, really useful. So I guess I'm only missing the mastermind piece.
But also if you get that kind of accountability, that celebrating, that talking you down off the ledge from your coach as well.
Yeah.
Then, maybe it's not something you need. And do you know, Holly, because I know you, I know that you also have like an informal mastermind network going on. You and I meet at least once a month, probably more, and we do a little bit of that kind of, kind of brainstorming and how's it going and all of that type of stuff. And I know that you have other entrepreneurs that you do that with too.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Maybe I do have kind of an informal thing going. So I've got this business buddy that we've been having like monthly calls for the last 4 years, I think.
There you go.
So it's very informal, but we do have, you're right. So I guess I do have some kind of support group. No, and one thing that my coach does that I love is that she sets up kind of a private base camp project for us to knock ideas back and forth between sessions. And that really helps me kind of get support between sessions and get feedback and that kind of thing. So yeah, doing good. So I feel like we've kind of covered the topic. How are you feeling? I feel like I've
talked a lot. I feel like I've just I'm having that moment of just going, I talked a lot, but was it useful talk?
Yes, it was useful.
Okay, good.
Interesting. And it's going to be even more useful once you write that book.
Yes. Okay. All right. God, I'm publicly now committing to writing a second book. One of my clients this week said to me, I can't wait till your book comes out. And I was like, for a minute, like, what book? And she'd listened to our podcast episode where I committed to writing a book. I was just like, oh, that book. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it is still on my list of things to do, so now I have to. But yeah, I am a huge fan of all of this stuff. Yeah, that's why I do the work that I do. That's why you do the work that you do, Holly. It's because we know the power of it ourselves. Yeah. But I would love to, if anybody has any questions, and if there is, a need for it or a desire for it, I would be more than happy to set up like a Q&A call and things if people want more details on how, or maybe a follow-up episode on how to set up your own mastermind, because I know that there are also paid mastermind groups and they are slightly different. I don't have a huge amount of experience with those, although I am in one, but I don't see how it differs from, say, like a group coaching program, and there's usually like a Facebook group that goes along with it, and that's kind of about it. So for me, the idea of a mastermind is this idea that you meet with people on a semi-regular basis with a fairly clear structure. But yeah, if people have questions about that or there's a desire for it, I'm more than happy to do maybe a follow-up episode on it.
Yeah, definitely. Or a webinar.
Wow. Yes. The book. I could maybe do a webinar and then have it transcribed.
Yes, and then turn it into an ebook. And it doesn't have to be long. It could be a short ebook. All you need is to have all the information people need, but not too much.
Okay.
So.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to publicly declare that I will do some kind of longer length recording around masterminds, have it transcribed, and see if I can turn that into the book.
Yay! All right. Well, as always, it was a pleasure to discuss business stuff with you.
Great. I love nerding out on this stuff.
And I think it was useful for our listeners as well. So
I hope so. And if it wasn't, listeners, I'm so sorry.
If it wasn't, just send us a message and we'll...
That was rubbish. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I should also say for the non-British listeners, a couple of people have pulled me up recently on the kind of my use of negative self-talk. I'm kind of doing it tongue-in-cheek. So when I say I don't genuinely think this is rubbish, when I say, oh, that was rubbish, or when I kind of call myself an idiot and stuff like that, well, I am aware of how our words shape our reality. So it's something that I'm aware of. I'm semi-doing it tongue-in-cheek. So before you send me messages going, I'm really concerned about your self-talk, Jen. I'm already on it, okay? Was that okay?
Yeah, it was perfect.
Okay, well, listeners, I hope that was useful for you. Please do send us any questions. You can tag us on Facebook. You can email me, joe@joecasey.com. You can email Holly at
holly@hollywharton.com. You can tweet. You can... Yes. Instagram, you can whatever.
You can also tag me in my Facebook group. Talking of masterminds, I have an online Facebook mastermind group where there's almost 500 coaches. You're a member, Holly.
I know, but I didn't notice how many people had joined.
Oh, I see. I thought you were kind of going, oh, you've got Facebook? Yeah. So yeah, and you could tag either of us in the Facebook group. It's called the Coaches Collective, and I will link to it in the show notes.
Yes.
Are we done? Do you think we've covered everything?
I think we've covered everything. And if anyone has any questions, just let us know and we will consider a follow-up.
Yeah.
Or answer your questions simply.
Yeah. We will answer your questions, but if there's enough of them, we could maybe turn it into another episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Holly.
Thank you, Joe.
I really enjoyed that. Okay. Thank you, listeners, and we will speak to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening, and remember to visit hollywharton.com/164 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed at hollywharton.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you.